Before starting the video, I have a small request for all of you. If you are new to my channel, please subscribe and stay with me to watch more videos like this. And if you are watching from Facebook, make sure to follow my Facebook page. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, comment to share your thoughts, and share it with your friends. The water was never meant to freeze, not solid enough to bear the weight of a man, let alone the colossal burden of a nation's dream. Yet on the brutal morning of January 12, 1838, the Pennsylvania Main Line Canal, the artery connecting the burgeoning West to the manufacturing might of the East, was locked in a glacial grip. The wind, a serrated blade off the Allegheny Plateau, tore through the clustered shanties of Hollidaysburg, but the cold was merely an inconvenience to the hundreds of men gathered on the banks. It was the silence that was truly unsettling. The rhythmic, life-giving clack-clack of mule hooves on the towpath and the low, musical groan of laden canal boats had been replaced by a silence as deep and heavy as the ore they hauled. This canal, the most expensive public works project of its era, was not just a ditch filled with water. It was the sinew and soul of a new American economy. It was a 395-mile engineering marvel of locks, tunnels, and inclined planes, a technological leap that allowed a 40-ton boat to cross the towering Appalachian Mountains. But on this morning, the mountain had won a temporary, terrifying victory. Elias Vance, his breath clouding in ragged bursts, paced the ice-rimmed edge of the basin. At 26, he was a foreman for the Portage Railroad, the incredible incline system that lifted the canal boats over the spine of the Alleghenies. His hands, gnarled and scarred by rope burn and frostbite, gripped a worn leather logbook. He wasn't worried about the cargo, pig iron from Pittsburgh, destined for the foundries of Philadelphia. He was worried about the promise. Just 6 months earlier, the first through boat, christened the Hollidaysburg Star, had made the journey, linking the vast, resource-rich American interior to the Atlantic coast. Newspapers hailed it as the birth of a unified nation, a second Declaration of Independence signed in mud and masonry. The canal was the liquid assembly line of the Industrial Revolution, moving the raw materials that would forge everything from the steam engines of New England to the newfangled steel plows needed for the expansion into the Midwest. Every ton stalled here was a factory idled in Philadelphia, a ship delayed in the harbor, a dividend lost in London. Elias squinted down the frozen channel. He could make out the dark, hulking shapes of a dozen immobilized packet boats, their hulls trapped like prehistoric insects in amber. He knew the forgotten truth, that the glorious history of American industry, the one celebrated in monuments and textbooks, was built not just on invention and grit, but on the raw, often tragic logistical supremacy of these forgotten water highways. The iron in the soil, the coal in the mountains, it meant nothing until the canals could move it. Foreman Vance! The shout came from Captain Silas Kincaid, the owner-operator of a newly built 3-section freight boat, the Iron Serpent. Silas was a man whose skin looked cured by sun and engine grease, and whose eyes held the weary cynicism of having wrestled too long with both nature and bankers. "The thaw ain't coming for 3 more days, according to the prentice boy," Silas growled, stomping his boots. "Those ingots are drawing a penalty every hour. We're talking 20 tons of raw steel, Elias, enough to line 100 miles of track. We sit here, we starve. The line is dead." Elias shook his head, the logic of a lifetime spent on the towpath kicking in. "The canal is never dead, Silas. It's a machine that needs a mechanic." He pointed to the far side of the basin where a crew of Irish laborers, brought over for the sheer brutal effort of canal construction, were huddled around a roaring fire. They weren't cursing the cold, they were sharpening, not knives, but specialized ice-cutting saws, heavy 2-man blades with teeth the size of a man's thumb. "We move the steel differently," Elias declared, the wind whipping the words from his mouth. "The Portage Railroad is shut down. The ice won't break, so we'll make the ice a road." The plan that unfolded was a logistical madness born of desperation and the absolute American need to keep the wheels turning. It was a testament to the brutal, hidden efficiency of the canal system itself. The problem was not the water, it was the lack of continuous, reliable power. Elias ordered the heavy-duty iron skids, normally used to move cargo across the incline planes, to be brought down. The Irish crew, led by a massive man named Finn O'Connell, began the torturous process of sawing a channel just wide enough for the canal boats to move a short distance. But instead of freeing them completely, Elias had the cargo, those critical 20 tons of pig iron, unloaded onto the skids. The true work began when the sun dipped below the ridges, painting the sky in colors of charcoal and fading ember. The men didn't attempt to break the thick 5-inch ice, they smoothed it. Using hot water drawn from the shanty boilers and scrapers, they created a perfectly level, slick surface on the frozen canal. Then they hitched the mules, not to the boats which were too heavy and too deep in the ice. They hitched the mules, 5 per team, to the heavy iron-laden skids. The next day, a procession that would never appear in a celebratory lithograph began. The 20 tons of pig iron, the vital rivers of steel, were sliding across a river of ice.
It was a brutal, non-stop marathon. The mules struggled for purchase on the smooth ice, their hooves shod with special spiked ice shoes that tore up the surface behind them. The laborers, their lungs burning, pushed, pulled, and guided the skids across the 30 miles of frozen flat canal that led to the next major lock station. They were hauling the future of the American factory system on a makeshift sledge over a frozen industrial highway that was never designed for it. The canal was built on a series of brutal bets, a bet on geology, a bet on human endurance, and a huge bet on capital. By the time Elias was working it, it was already a forgotten wonder, eclipsed in the public imagination by the burgeoning, faster, more reliable steam-powered railroads that were slowly but surely beginning to parallel its route.
Yet its legacy, the deep, transformative change it wrought on the landscape and the economy, was undeniable. The canals were the original architects of the American city. Cities like Rochester, New York exploded in population and wealth because the Erie Canal allowed farmers to ship grain from the Great Lakes directly to New York City. The canals turned isolated regional economies into an integrated national market. They cut the cost of transporting a ton of freight from Buffalo to New York City by over 90%. Before the Erie, a bushel of wheat cost more to move from Buffalo to Albany than from Albany to Liverpool, England. The canals ended that insanity. The men who built them were the true river gods of steel. They were the Irish, German, and local farmers who excavated the equivalent of the Great Wall of China, working with picks, shovels, and gunpowder. Their toil was measured not in hours, but in blisters, swamp fever, and rockfall accidents. The true cost of the canal, the hidden history, was not just the $13 million bond it took to build the Pennsylvania Main Line, but the hundreds of lives lost to malaria in the marshlands and the canal fever that swept through the shanty towns. Elias remembered a story told by his father, who had worked on the original construction of the tunnel near Pittsburgh, the first major canal tunnel in America. The banker, he comes out from Philadelphia looking clean and worried, his father had told him. He points to the mountain and asks the foreman, "How are you going to get water through that?" The foreman, a brute named Big Mike, just points to the 100 men with picks and says, "Same way we get the mud out, sir. One shovel at a time until the sun shines through the other side." The canals were a testament to this brute, simple faith in human will over natural barriers, and now Elias and his crew were proving that faith again. On the third night of the operation, they reached the first working lock, 48 hours late. The skids had to be transferred onto the muddy bank, the pig iron reweighed, and then reloaded onto a fresh boat, the Monongahela Spirit, which could continue the journey in the small open section of the canal that was maintained with hot water pumps. When the last ingot was safely stowed, Captain Silas Kincaid walked up to Elias, pulling a canvas pouch from his heavy coat. The consignee, he took the delay since the cargo was intact, Silas said, placing a small pile of silver dollars into Elias's hand. "This is a bonus for not letting the line die." Elias didn't look at the money. He looked back down the dark, frozen expanse of the canal. The mules were being unhitched, steam rising from their exhausted bodies. The Irish crew was already packing up, their massive saws being wrapped in oilskins. "It was never just about the line, Silas," Elias said quietly, his voice raspy from the cold. "It's about what the line carries. It's not just pig iron. It's the roof beam for the new schoolhouse in Harrisburg. It's the gear teeth for the loom in Lancaster. It's the possibility that keeps the nation moving." He turned and looked east, toward the silhouette of the Allegheny Ridge. Soon, the railroads would dominate, faster and cleaner, laying their own rivers of steel across the continent. The canals would fade, their towpaths becoming quiet trails for strollers, their locks decaying into picturesque moss-covered ruins. But here, tonight, under the frozen stars of a bitter January, the forgotten history was alive. Here, a handful of desperate men and mules had dragged the raw material of the Industrial Revolution across a frozen river of man-made water, refusing to let the current of progress freeze. They were the hidden force that forged America, their names lost to the annals, but their work, the iron, the coal, the very foundations of the country's economic might, still thrumming beneath the surface. Elias pocketed the coins. He knew that somewhere in a smoky Philadelphia foundry, a blacksmith was waiting for that steel, and the future, for a little while longer, was safe.
The thaw came not with a gentle sun, but with a sudden, violent shift in the weather, transforming the frozen canal basin into a quagmire of mud and slush. Within 48 hours, the Monongahela Spirit, laden with the vital pig iron, was churning through brown, restless water toward the foot of the Alleghenies. Elias Vance, having recovered his sleep in the muddy warmth of a lockkeeper's shanty, joined the boat at the small settlement of Hollidaysburg. Here, the canal, which had been the horizontal thread of the nation, ended abruptly at the base of the towering green wall of the Appalachian Spine. The next 36 miles were not water, but iron rails, rising 1,399 feet to the summit before plunging 1,171 feet down the other side to Johnstown, where the canal system resumed. This was the Allegheny Portage Railroad, heralded in its time as the eighth wonder of the world. A packet boat arriving at the transfer basin looked like a tired beast preparing for slaughter, but what happened next was the peak of 19th century mechanical ingenuity. The boat, like the Monongahela Spirit, was not a single continuous hull, but built in sections, typically 3 or 4, fastened together by heavy interlocking iron latches. Elias watched as the boat was piloted into a specially built dry dock. The lock gates closed, the water drained, and the crew, working with practiced, brutal speed, unlatched the sections. The canal boat was disassembled, piece by piece, like a giant liquid Lego set. Magnificent, isn't she? The voice belonged to Dr. Alistair Finch, a slight, older man with the precise, weary air of a professor who had booked passage on the Portage. Elias recognized him immediately as a financier from Philadelphia, a man whose money was riding on the efficiency of this very system. "Sir, this is where the money earns its keep," Elias replied, gesturing to the scene. "The flatlands are easy. It takes a machine to defeat a mountain." The disassembled boat sections, each now essentially a separate watertight truck, were hoisted by heavy chain and block and tackle onto specialized rail cars called trucks or cradles. These cradles were fitted with massive flanged wheels, ready to roll up the side of the mountain. The genius was in the inclined planes. The Portage Railroad was not a gentle winding route. It used 10 separate planes, 5 ascending the eastern slope and 5 descending the western slope. At the bottom of each plane sat a massive stationary steam engine house, its smokestack belching black defiance at the clouds. Elias oversaw the hitching of the first boat section, the heavy stern, still carrying most of the pig iron cargo. A thick 9-strand hemp rope, over half a mile long, was threaded around a massive drum or sheave inside the engine house. "The ropes are the weak point," Dr. Finch muttered, adjusting his spectacles. "If one snaps, they snap," Elias confirmed, his tone flat. "Always have. That's why we don't stand too close, and why the line has a full crew of rope splicers working every night." The signal bell rang, 3 sharp pulls. From inside the engine house, the rhythmic, deafening hiss, chuff, clank of the high-pressure steam engine began. The great hemp rope, thick as a man's thigh, tightened. With a groan of steel on steel, the boat-laden chuft began its vertical ascent. The vertical world. The grade on some of these planes approached an astonishing 10%. Plane number 6, the longest, stretched over 3,000 feet. For the passengers who chose to stay aboard their sections, a harrowing, stomach-lurching mistake, the journey was terrifying. Elias, who rode a small safety inspection car that ran alongside the main line, watched the landscape fall away. He remembered the stories of how this railroad was originally conceived not for boats, but simply for transferring cargo, forcing everything to be unloaded, carried up, and reloaded. It was Chief Engineer John B. Jervis who proposed the radical idea: why unload the boat when you can simply move the boat itself? This decision saved weeks of labor and hundreds of dollars per ton. It was this seamless multimodal transition, water to rail and back to water, that made the American industrial output possible. They were not just transporting goods, they were transporting the means of transportation itself. Midway up plane number 4, the entire process ground to a halt. The deafening chuff of the engine stopped. "What is it?" Dr. Finch shouted from the car behind Elias's. Elias signaled the line runner, a young boy with a flag. "Broken cog on the braking drum," he yelled back. "The friction brake failed." The danger was immediate and profound. If the heavy truck, loaded with 20 tons of iron and the rear section of the boat, began to roll back, it would gain catastrophic speed and smash into the other cars waiting below. It would be a disaster of scrap wood, shattered iron, and pulverized cargo.
Elias scrambled off the safety car. He signaled for the engineer to maintain a light, continuous tension on the rope, enough to keep the section from running away, but not enough to stress the already compromised mechanism. The air filled with the stench of overheated iron and fear. It was Finn O'Connell, the massive Irish laborer from the frozen canal basin, who saved the moment. He and his crew were already at the base, waiting for their turn. Finn sprinted up the steep slope, carrying 2 heavy, square-cut wooden blocks, known simply as scotches. Reaching the stalled car, Finn threw one block beneath the leading wheel. The iron-laden truck rolled back a terrifying foot, caught the block, and let out a tortured shriek of scraping metal and stressed timber. The car shuddered, but stopped. Finn wedged the second scotch firmly behind the wheel as a backup, securing the car. The men worked for a grueling 2 hours under the unrelenting high noon sun, replacing the broken component. When the engine finally restarted, pulling the load slowly and surely to the summit, Dr. Finch looked at the muddy, sweating Finn O'Connell, then back at Elias. "That man," Dr. Finch said, pointing, "he is the true anchor of this line, not the rope." "He's a canal man, Doctor," Elias replied simply. "He knows that steel only matters if you can keep it moving." The summit and the descent. The summit at the town of Portage, now called Crescent, was the eye of the storm. Here, the cars were moved by teams of horses on a gentle, level stretch of track. This was where the great canal boat sections, having conquered the mountain, were temporarily unified. This brief rest stop was the center of an entire raucous community, taverns, smithies, and inns, catering to the weary passengers and the hard-bitten crew. At the western slope, the procedure reversed. The cars were sent down the 5 descending plains towards Johnstown, using the same engine system to carefully lower the heavy loads. The tension was constant, the margin for error thin. The Monongahela Spirit sections, now reaching the bottom, were floated into the Johnstown Basin, reassembled, and launched back into the smooth, westward-flowing waters of the Western Division Canal, heading straight toward the smoky, booming industries of Pittsburgh. The journey was complete. A canal boat and its critical payload of pig iron had sailed over a mountain range. Elias Vance watched the reassembled boat disappear down the canal, its mule team already settling into the steady, mile-eating pace of the towpath. The operation was a success. The factory would run. The promise would be kept. But looking at the towering, silent steam engines and the complex web of rails disappearing up the mountain, Elias felt a strange sense of melancholy. The Portage Railroad was revolutionary, a mechanical triumph over geography. But it was also slow, vulnerable to weather, prone to breakdown, and intensely expensive to operate. Even as they celebrated the seamless movement of that single consignment of steel, the real, true competition was already arriving. The Baltimore and Ohio, BOO, and the Pennsylvania Railroad, true steam-powered, continuous-grade rail lines were being built. They wouldn't need inclined planes, and they certainly wouldn't need to disassemble their loads. They would simply lay their own rivers of steel, faster, cheaper, and year-round, rendering this heroic mechanical marvel obsolete within a generation. Elias knew the history he was living in was temporary. The industrial canals, the great arteries of 19th century America, were destined to become ghost waterways, their massive stonework locks dissolving back into the earth, their towpaths yielding to weeds. Yet, for now, the iron lungs of the mountain were still breathing, moving the lifeblood of the nation, one disassembled boat and one terrifying incline at a time. The hidden history was not just in their decline, but in the unbelievable, audacious fact of their existence, and the thousands of nameless men like Finn O'Connell and Elias Vance, who made American industry possible.
The year is 1889. The rhythmic chuff-clink of the Portage Railroad engines has long since fallen silent. The 10 inclined planes, once the iron lungs of the mountain, are now skeletal ruins, rusted rails leading to overgrown engine houses. The great Pennsylvania Canal system, including the Western Division that began in Johnstown, had been purchased, line by line, by the very entity that killed it, the Pennsylvania Railroad, PRR. The PRR, faster, more reliable, and capable of operating year-round without the laborious process of disassembling and reassembling boats, systematically dismantled the competition. They drained the canals, filled in the basins, and laid their own sleek, continuous tracks along the easy grades of the old towpaths. Elias Vance, now an aging man with a salt and pepper beard, had long since left the canals. Like many old boatmen, he found work, if he was lucky, as a foreman on the new railroad, ironically maintaining the lines that had rendered his life's work obsolete. The hidden history was changing its form, but its industrial nature remained. Where Where the canal had once run, massive trestles and stone abutments now carried heavy steam locomotives, hauling exponentially more steel and coal than the slow boats ever could. The canal age was a memory, a quaint, inefficient relic of a more innocent time. The fatal flaw. The western division of the canal, running from Johnstown toward Pittsburgh, required a massive water source to feed its locks. This necessity had led to the construction of an earthen dam in 1853, 13 miles upstream from Johnstown, creating an enormous body of water, the South Fork Dam and the reservoir known as Lake Canamaga. This was the canal system's final, unwitting, and most catastrophic contribution to American history. The dam, originally a robust engineering feat, fell into disrepair almost immediately after the canal's decline. By the late 1770s, the PRR had sold the abandoned reservoir to a private group of wealthy industrialists from Pittsburgh, men like Andrew Carnegie and Henry Frick, who converted the site into an exclusive summer retreat, the South Fork Fishing and Hunting Club. Elias Vance, who had briefly worked near the dam years before, knew its flaws. The original designers had cut a wide, stone-lined spillway to allow excess water to escape safely. But the fishing club, wanting wider carriage access and better fish retention, had lowered the spillway and allowed years of debris, brush, fish screens, and mud to accumulate, dangerously restricting its flow. Crucially, they removed and never replaced the original metal discharge pipes that allowed the dam to be safely drained in an emergency. Elias had tried to warn the new owners, traveling to the local magistrate in 1880 to point out the dam's sinking crest and its deteriorating state. That reservoir holds 40 feet of water, capable of flooding the entire Conemaugh Valley, Elias had pleaded. If it breaks, Johnstown will be wiped clean off the map. The magistrate, weary of the complaints from the canal men, simply shook his head. The law is clear, Vance. The club owns the property. You have no standing. The industrial canals, built to unite the nation, had left behind a monumental, neglected weapon pointed directly at the heart of an industrial city. The deluge. The stage was set for the final, brutal chapter. Johnstown was a thriving city of 30,000, built on steel production, smoke, and coal. It sat nestled in a valley, a testament to the very industry the canals had pioneered. The rains began on May 28, 1889, and did not stop. It was the heaviest rainfall ever recorded in the region. The Conemaugh River swelled far past its banks. Elias, living further down the valley, but receiving telegrams from the frantic railroad crews, knew instantly what was happening. The limited spillway of the South Fork Dam, restricted by debris and lowered by indifference, could not handle the deluge. On the afternoon of May 31, 1889, at 3:10 p.m., the dam failed. The entire 72-foot-high wall of water, 20 million tons, was released. It was not a slow leak, but an explosion. The sound was reported heard 10 miles away, a roar that witnesses compared to the end of the world. A wave, 40 feet high and traveling at 40 miles per hour, barreled down the valley. It picked up everything in its path: trees, boulders, homes, and human lives. Its final horrific act was to encounter the old infrastructure of the very system that had created the dam. The great stone viaduct of the Pennsylvania Railroad, built on the foundations of the canal, acted as a giant strainer. When the flood reached it, the water, laden with debris and human bodies, piled up into a chaotic, terrifying mass. This debris caught fire from the stoves and oil lamps carried in the wreckage, leading to the final, fiery devastation. The result was the greatest loss of civilian life in a single day in U.S. history until 9/11. 2,209 people were killed. The catastrophe was a direct result of the canal's legacy, a massive, abandoned piece of civil engineering, carelessly repurposed by powerful men who placed profit and recreation above public safety. The rivers of steel that had once carried the nation's promise had become a raging, deadly torrent, washing away the evidence of its own history. Today, the canals are gone. The Johnstown flood changed American law and introduced the modern concept of negligence and liability. Yet the deep cuts, the overgrown towpaths, and the moss-covered, collapsing masonry of the locks, the forgotten industrial canals, are still there, quietly woven into the American landscape, a silent, powerful reminder of the hidden engineering and the ultimate price paid for the nation's industrial birth.